Hi guys, cat kiss.
Sup. Sorry, YouTube. You've been silenced. Legitimately, I don't want my mods to have to worry about two different chats. I feel like that's way too much work, so that's why. I think this way, people who like to watch like the crime time stuff and also stuff in general from me can see that I'm live if they're on YouTube and not have to worry about one, somehow seeing the YouTube community tab, which is like, who's staring at that? Two, it gets everybody to come here where I want the predominant amount of chat to be hanging out.
Yo.
That's how I saw you were live. Bang. 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 You know what I mean? That's came from YouTube. If you came over from YouTube, tell me. Tell me right now. I need to know that that worked. Not that that's my goal, but I don't want my mods to have to mod multiple places.
Fart.
Okay, I don't need my like 2-year subs being like, I came from YouTube. I came in your mom. Okay.
Can't believe Sneeg's exploding live on Twitch.
You get the fuck away, wet napkin. Stinky bitch. You
Just hear from YouTube lol.
Stinky.
I also came in your mom.
Bitch. Dude, I really needed that. Holy shit. He said that like a white guy trying to fit in really bad. That was awesome. That was so sick. I love that. Oh, dude, I needed that. It's great to see everybody. Wow, have I had a day. Boomer got out this morning and I was like not good. I went outside with our dogs and Darcy, and I was just sitting on the porch, and Darcy was playing with her little water table thing we got her, and we were just sitting there. We were just hanging out. You know, I was letting Darcy have fun. I was just like enjoying my morning, and then I was like, okay, let's bring everybody inside. And then I was just like, where is my dog? And today is trash day, and I went to take out trash last night, and I guess I just didn't close the gate right. Is he okay? He is more okay than I was, dude. I was not happy. I was like distraught. It was me and Darcy were home. Hannah was out. I like put my Hannah just sent me a picture of our front door and there's bird poop on it. We have like a whole, it's not like the front door is exposed to the sky. There's like an overhang, a porch with the roof, like there's like plenty of roof above the door. That was you. There's just a bird shit on our screen door. That's incredible. I don't even know what to say. That's ridiculous. That's something else. Nesting on the porch. We have had a bird have babies, like a robin have baby robins on the top of one of the porches, like little divots, but it was on the opposite side. I don't understand.
OMG, is that the great father Sneeg snagged himself?
Hey. Oh. Come here.
Budley just wanted to check on his favorite spade card SMA.
He thinks he's still in trouble. Like, I wasn't even mad at him. I was just so sad. Come here. What'd you do earlier? Yeah, so I guess I just didn't close the fence right last night. And so I'm out there hanging out with my daughter and dogs. And like, you know, it's not like I have vision of the gate to the front yard. Like, it's not like I walk out, the backyard's totally visible. Like, it's like the backyard, it wraps around. Oh. And, you know, there's the gate. So, like, you have to very deliberately...
Call me a bird with the way I be shitting on Sneeg's door. Wow. Wow. Wow.
Rude.
Lurk crime time? No, prime time. Take my prime sub, stink guy.
Thank you. I'll get into thinking some subs in a second. But yeah, he got out and like...
Okay.
I like literally couldn't handle it. I got Darcy in a stroller. I called Hannah. I was like, the gate's open. He's gone. I checked everywhere. He's gone. And I got Darcy in a stroller and I started walking around the neighborhood to see if I could see him. I didn't know how long it had been because, like I said, I had been out there for like 30, 40 minutes letting Darcy just hang out. I'm like, and all of our dogs are out. That's what's scarier is I'm like amazed that none of the other dogs left. Like, I'm just glad it was just Boomer, because you know what his ass did? He walked like, how did we find him? He walked like 4 blocks apparently.
It's the stink man, leader
found
of the
some
freaks.
Random woman gardening and just like went up to her. She called Hannah and was just like, I think I got your dog. He just walked up to me and I said, come here. And he just walked up. She was like, it looked like he was trying to find his way back to his house. And it made me sad. I was like,
Prime time for crime. I haven't been able to tune into any streams for literally almost a
Hannah
year, but
pulled
glad
up
to have
and
had
apparently he
reoccurring
was just
subs on
like,
to support you the whole time.
he was just like sitting there. Like, he wasn't even like, she wasn't holding him or anything. He was very like apprehensive to letting her like hold him. And he was just sitting on her porch with her. Yeah, super, super grateful. But like, I haven't had a panic attack in a long time. I can't lie. That was not great. I had to lay down for like 2 hours. I took a nap, etc. It's very funny thinking about him just wandering out and finding some random woman being like, where the fuck am I? I'm just glad that like he nothing happened. Like, to my knowledge, he didn't get on the main road. To my knowledge, he didn't get in a fight with anything. Like, he looks totally fine. But let me tell you guys, that's why, that's exactly why you have a collar on your dog with information or some sort of tracking chip within them. Because, wow. Yeah. It was scary, man. Anyway. I've had an interesting day, obviously. So, I would have started earlier today had all these antics not have happened, but that's okay. So, welcome to the stream today. Hello to anybody coming from YouTube.
I had a similar experience where a neighbor knocked on my door telling me my dog got out, which confused me because my dog was right behind me, in the house. Turns out someone else has a brown lab that got confused with my dog. I called his owner and we got him back to his owner quickly.
That's funny.
Code shirt, is that sneegsnag?
Tis. Yeah, it was a
feel
weird
that
week or
my
a weird
foster
morning.
got out a few weeks after giving birth, and I ended up chasing her down my street in slippers I could hardly run in. My biggest concern was her getting in the main road and getting hit. Luckily she stopped in someone's driveway and I got her lol.
Yeah, dude. It was something else. Anyway. Happy he's okay, happy to be live. This is my last stream for a couple of days, so sorry for the YouTube viewers who are just now realizing I stream a lot on Twitch and they can just come over
Long
here a lot.
Long time no see streamer, man. I've missed so many streams the past few months cause of my work schedule rip. But the school year's over, so this
just show up
teach
when
is
you
back
can.
for
It's
crime time.
pretty
Let's
solid.
go.
It's
Happy
appreciated no matter
37
what.
months.
Just show up when you can. Taking a vacay or a break. It's just a little business trip. If you're not aware already,
dog has a history of just walking into each other's house.
That's awesome. If you don't already know, I'm going to be on Jimmy Here's live show in LA on the 5th in 2 days at LAX or at LA, not LAX. I hope not at LA at the Terra Graham Ballroom. So if you're in the LA area and there are tickets still available, feel inclined to come watch. I think I'm trying to remember what the link is. Hold on. Where is it at? It's jimmyheretickets.com.
My 3-year resub is tomorrow.
2013.
Fuck you.
So, if you guys are in the LA area or want to make the trip down or over, whatever, and watch the live show, it's me, it's Jimmy here, it's Rubber Ross and Slimesicle. We're gonna all sit on a couch, and I think comedians try to make us laugh, and then if we laugh, we have to leave the couch. It's kind of how Jimmy does his sort of YouTube content and stream content that a lot of people know and love. So, happy to be a part of it. I gotta travel for it, but it's not a problem. But yeah, if you're in the area, you already have tickets, or you might show up, you're thinking about it, please do. It'll be great to see you guys. But in the meantime, I will obviously not be live. I don't have plans to make any live content while I'm there. We'll see. Oh yeah. Oh, there it is. Look at Ross on my lap. He's so happy. Ross is in Rubber Ross? Yes. As in Rubber Ross. Very excited to hang out with him again. I haven't seen him in a while. I saw Charlie like 2 weeks ago, maybe. So will they be recording a live show? I have no idea. That's a Jimmy question. I'm not like totally familiar with the layout and the process of his shows. So I'm just happy to be a participant and help out Jim because we're old friends. So I'm just happy to help him out and be a part of a fun show. And you know, so I'm probably gonna get the download when I get there. Anyway, that being said, would love to see you there if you're around and want to go. It's July 5th, 8 p.m. PST. It's right there. JimmyHereTickets.com. How did I get to know Jimmy? Pains me to say the name, but it was from SMP Live. Yeah, I don't know why. He was added to the server a little after. I don't think he was a veteran. I don't think he was the original 12 or 13. He might have been, actually. He was added pretty quickly, though. I think he was added a day or two after. It was like almost immediately. He was basically, are you a vet? I was. Yeah, I was one of the original members of SMP Live. But he was added at some point and we just like really hit it off. And we've just been like good friends since, really. I mean, we don't make much content together, but like I've known him for a while. And he went to my wedding. He we've done plenty of events and stuff together. So happy to help him out with one of his. Anyway, I'm going to be doing that for the next few days. But in the meantime, for the people who aren't going to be there or are going to miss some live streams or might even be missing this stream, we're going to do some crime time. We watched one yesterday that I'll be able to put on YouTube at some point. And then we've got these 3 videos that I keep trying to watch, but I end up going on an hour plus tangent watching one video, and then I end up being tired and wanting to play Minecraft. First stream in a long time that I'm actually streaming also to YouTube. So hello to YouTube. You guys cannot chat because I do not want to overwhelm my mods with multiple places to moderate. Hope that's okay. If you feel inclined to come over to Twitch, you're more than welcome. My chat is pretty nice. Even if they bully me a lot, and that's okay because it's fun. But they're a nice bunch, and I thought this would be a fun way to include my YouTube audience on my live streams, because that's always the goal, is to aggregate more people over to my bread and butter, which is my live streams on Twitch. And that's it. I mean, I don't know what else. What channel is You Laugh You Leave live on? I don't, not live as in streamed, live as in like in person. I don't know if it's going to be streamed at all, guys. It's like a live show, not a live stream. That's why I have to like go. Will it be recorded? Guys, this is a Jimmy question. I'm telling you, I have no idea. This is a Jimmy question. So we're going to watch some crime time today. Welcome to the stream or the video or whatever you're watching this through. If you're watching this through YouTube videos, that means you missed the live stream, but you're more than welcome to join the next one. I stream over at Twitch. Also, my YouTube live sort of also happens, but it's mostly Twitch where you can like get the most out of it. So feel free to come on by. We would love to have you here. Twitch is a fun time, and my chats is okay, I guess, even if they're mean. And yeah. So we're going to watch some videos today. In case you're unaware, a lot of these videos are from the React suggestions on my Discord. So if you're not already a part of the Discord and you have some videos that would be really cool to watch, true crime or non-true crime, doesn't matter as long as it's interesting, you go put it in the React suggestions of my Discord, and then be a part of a community who is, I don't know, you guys chill? I don't actually remember. I feel like we scare people. I don't know. Anyway. And if you're watching this on stream already and you happen to have to go later, you can always go to the YouTube and it'll be uploaded in a couple of days, whatever. So, boom. Video time. Boom. Big. All right. I've got 3 in mind. 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th, I'll be gone. So, like, technically, if we watch all 3 of these, I'll have 4 videos for the 4 days I'm gone. But if something else interests, we could also do something else. You're traveling on the 4th? It's the 4th of July, man. I wasn't going to stream anyway. I hardly want to celebrate the 4th of July given what the climate of our country right now. I mean, Jesus. Have fun in the airport. I've actually flown multiple times on the 4th of July, and it's extremely empty. Really? Yeah. This would be the, like, low-key, this might be like the 3rd or 4th year I've traveled on the 4th of July. Just because stuff always shows up around this time. And, I don't know. Every single time, it's like nobody's around because everybody travels or has plans. So they're already where they're supposed to be. They don't travel on the 4th for the 4th. You know what I mean? There was a couple of years ago, I traveled on the 4th, and it was like at night when fireworks were going off, and we could see the fireworks like from our plane. It was actually really cool. Like on takeoff, you could see like all the like the little, it was like little tiny fireworks. It was really cool, actually. I actually loved it. Anyway, we need to do my actual job.
I'm doing the most American thing on the 4th, working for a soulless corporation owner.
W. I keep forgetting how I do this shit. Was this how we did this?
Chat and chat, you're all stinky.
Or did I do theater
Can you
mode?
guys believe America is 25 years old? Also, you lost the game.
Bruh. Was it this? I think it was this. This seems more correct. All right. Ah! Okay. Really quick before we start the video. Neffy, thank you for the 51 months. Lucky Road, thank you for the Prime sub. Welcome to the Freaks. W's for the new freak. There's a few new ones, so you guys are gonna have to roll the W's in. Just keep hitting W because there was like 6 Prime subs a little bit ago. Girl Georgie, thank you for the gifted sub. W's for a gifted sub as well. Kyler, thank you for the 37. Sapling, 10 months. Spork, 43 months. Sage Claire with the tier 1 sub. Welcome to the Freaks. More W's, please. Breadstick, 31. Spicy Ranch, 15 months. Elysium, 28 months. Snail World, 8. Sigian, 7 months. Ludapardus, thank you for the 43. Jirai Angel, thank you for the Prime sub. Welcome to the Freaks W's for another new one. Ghosted, thank you for the 40 months. Internebula and K-Bug, also 2 new Prime subs. W's, welcome to the Freaks. Mulch Boy, thank you for the 44 months. Gymnast Amber, I don't know why I said it like that, sorry. Tier 1 sub, welcome to the Freaks. Appreciate it a ton. More W's. Audio Fraud, Prime sub, welcome to the Freaks. Very cool. Bunch of new ones. Jello, they give the 7. Dana, they give the 43. Lux Oxid, they give the 7. Subi Puddle, they give the 22. Isa, they give the gifted sub. All right, cool. Let's do it. Oh yeah, I guess if I really want to sell out all my points, Crinkle plushie, still available. He's so soft. Very cool.
Birds aren't real.
Anyway. Okay, first things first, we're going to watch a video from Fern called How the CIA Uses Animals to Spy. It'll be a very interesting one. You guys will like this. I sort of know, but I'm sure there's plenty about it that I don't.
This pigeon is a CIA spy. It's wearing a tiny high-tech camera, and it's about to gather intelligence on Soviet nuclear submarines. This is a dolphin. Right now, it's being trained to carry bombs and attach them to enemy vessels, possibly miniaturized nuclear bombs.
Okay, wait, what?
This raven isn't just flying around. It's on a mission. Currently, it's heading towards the hotel room of a KGB agent to plant a bug there. And this cat has been sent to spy on a Chinese diplomat. It had a microphone surgically implanted in its ear, and there's an antenna in its tail. This all sounds like science fiction.
All of the birds died in 1986 due to Reagan killing them and replacing them with drones that are now spying on us. The birds work for the bourgeoisie.
Thank you for reminding me to turn off text-to-speech.
But animal spies are very real. Their stories have long been shrouded in secrecy, myths, and legends. But in 2019,
I knew about
the CIA
like the
released a large
pigeons with the
trove of
KGB, but I didn't know about
classified
the rest of this
documents.
shit.
They give us a glimpse into how the CIA tries to weaponize animals. Today, we will look at the 4 most spectacular projects. They reveal a story of Cold War paranoia, unchecked hubris, absurd waste, spectacular failures, and wild ideas that were taken too far.
I already love
Most
the
of this
production
video
of
is
this
based on
channel.
declassified CIA documents. Of course, the CIA wants to present itself in a certain light, and it's careful about what it reveals. Some parts are heavily redacted, and sometimes other sources give conflicting information. We can only present what we know.
I wonder
and
if
we
it's
don't
'cause
know
it's fucked
something,
up what
we'll be
they do.
transparent about it. As always, you can find our sources in the description. Humans weaponize animals to make use of special capabilities they themselves lack. A dog's sense of smell is up to 10,000 times stronger than ours. It's perfect for sniffing out illegal drugs. To cross the Alps and invade Italy, the Carthaginian general Hannibal used war elephants. During World War II, the Polish army deployed a brown bear named Wojciech to the Italian front. In Iraq, the US military worked with dolphins, putting their unparalleled echolocation skills to use detecting underwater mines.
I did not know
and
they
some
did
work
that.
with animals
I did
is
not know
veiled
that
in
we did
secrecy.
that.
By their nature, it's hard to tell exactly how far these programs have progressed. In 2019, a beluga whale was discovered in Norwegian waters wearing a camera harness. A tag identified it as belonging to St. Petersburg, Russia. It was quickly accused of being a spy. In 2007, Iran apprehended 14 squirrels near a nuclear enrichment plant.
You've cut me.
The animals were arrested as spies. In 2018, a senior military advisor told
the animals were arrested as spies. Do you think they read them their Miranda rights, or?
told journalists that Western nuclear
Tell us what you know.
spies have been using lizards to collect information about Iran's nuclear program. Animals have an inherent advantage that human spies lack. People simply don't notice them. Unlike human agents or advanced technology like drones, animals can typically pass undetected, even in secure areas. But there's a problem. Animals are not natural spies. They need training. During the Cold War, the CIA faced a mighty adversary, the Soviet Union. In trying to claim the upper hand, the agency explored all sorts of methods, some of them highly unorthodox. Psychedelic drugs, mind control, silent killer weapons, stealing Russian submarines, and, of course, animal agents.
Dude,
in the mid-1960s, the CIA launched Project Axiolite. The goal was to provide reliable trained avian vehicles for emplacement,
so good.
transport, and or recovery of reconnaissance surveillance sensors to meet operational requirements as defined by the sponsors. In other words, the CIA was training birds to transport things like recording devices. But which birds were spy material? There were several candidates, some stronger than others.
Well, I mean, they used messenger pigeons
The
for a
cockatoo
long
seemed
time.
to be a wild card.
Oh, God.
One memo states, "We are completely in the dark as to what the possibilities are in regard to this critter."
Nothing, bro.
There were
they're fucking awful. I mean, they look really cool, but like, dude, when we were in Australia, we went to this island for a bit as like a little vacation after our long business trip. And like, oh my God, they were everywhere. And if your door to your room was open, they would come in and start fucking wrecking the place. They would just grab anything that looked like food, toss it around. Also, they just go, rat, 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 rat. Like, they're so loud, bro. I have no idea. There's no way they found anything to do with those things. They're not subtle at all, dude. Like, they're so loud and like so abrasive. You as a bird, to be fair, you guys did call me a cockatoo for a long time because my hair goes up. So,
high hopes for the Hawks. Brandy and GB are two of the program's Hawks. They were especially reliable and determined.
Oh my God.
They could locate specific objects or features in strange territory. They could carry a 13-ounce package for more than a mile. They could even remove objects from a harness they themselves were wearing. But in general, they were not considered strong flyers. Horned owls respond to a high-frequency whistle and can be recalled by trainers, even in extreme low-light situations. But in daylight, their ability to discern objects is much worse than that of other birds. As time progresses, one unlikely candidate stands out. Doodah. A raven.
That's not unlikely at all. Ravens are smart as hell.
We now know that ravens are extremely intelligent birds. They have excellent memories, can plan for the future, and are capable of using tools and solving puzzles. Maybe this is how they found out. I don't know. Researchers have found that 4-month-old ravens can perform certain cognitive tasks, as well as adult-grade apes. CIA documents usually stick to dry facts, but Doodah was Project Axiolite's superstar. In one memo, an agent dedicates a whole page to the saga of Doodah. Project Axiolite began at a Navy facility at San Clemente Island, off the coast of California. There, the CIA tested the strength of various birds. Their task: fly from the island to a boat and back. This might sound easy, but the distance was challenging, and the winds could be strong. Most birds could manage to fly between 50 yards and 1.5 miles. Doodah, meanwhile, flew 3.5 miles.
Okay, Doodah.
A few months later, he was almost doubling that distance.
Damn!
He was also problem-solving. In every session, he would figure out exactly the right altitude he needed to fly for the unique wind conditions. Aggressive native birds posed a major threat to the CIA trainees. Wild gulls and ravens soon figured out their training schedule. Once they knew when the CIA birds would show up, they would lie in wait and then attack. But Doodah solved this problem too.
What?
To avoid the gulls, he'd keep to a higher altitude and outfly them. The wild ravens were another matter. They would hide behind the bluffs, waiting for an opportunity to attack. Doodah's solution was to engage in brief dogfights with the ravens, while leading them further and further from shore. After about a mile, they would give up and turn back. Ravens' intelligence made them good at more than
correct way
flying.
To hold a bird.
According to Navy animal trainer Bob Bailey, they could be taught to recognize specific desks, open drawers, and carry heavy objects like file folders. The CIA started training ravens like Doodah extensively, and eventually used them in the field. According to the CIA documents, this is how they did it. A CIA agent.
I have a hard time thinking this isn't some kind of propagandized information. Because, like, who's fact-checking the CIA, really? I mean, this is a crazy idea if true, but, like, at the same time, what better way for a secret agency to lie than to release secret documents with redacted information, but then it gives some, and it's like, Yeah, man, we trained a crow to fucking fly in the air and assassinate a competitive country's leader. And oh my god. What better way to like keep everybody scared?
Wants to record a secret conversation between enemy agents. He knows where and when it's taking.
I've mentioned a couple times that my cat likes to watch your streams. I have pictures of her as a kitten watching streams while in my lap or on my PC tower. She got spayed last night and had some complications. While trying to find a way to soothe her post-op dysphoria, we put on one of your VODs and she calmed right down. I guess you're my cat's comfort streamer. We have the stream up on the TV right now for her.
Damn, that's cute as fuck. Wow.
Place,
that's awesome.
Down to the building and the exact room.
Meow.
Now he needs to get a recording device close to the conversation, as inconspicuously as possible. To do this, he goes to a nearby building with a view of the targeted location, no more than 300 feet away. With him, he has a trained raven.
Subtle.
At the appropriate time, he aims a tiny flashing laser at the window ledge outside the room where the conversation is taking place. Then he releases the raven from its cage. The bird takes a disguised listening device in its beak and flies to the spot indicated by the laser to plant the equipment. The agent then turns on a special desk lamp to signal to the raven that it's time to return. Later on, the raven is sent to retrieve the recording device by the same method. At least, this is how it's described in the document, Operator's Manual, Avian Delivery System. In real life, things didn't go as smoothly. Training a wild animal to be a spy takes time. It takes planning. If the CIA is still training animals today, they're most likely using Udo's all-in-one management software. Udo offers a
brother. Come on now. Come on now.
For molting, they couldn't fly comfortably.
Crazy.
One put the listening device on the wrong windowsill, and when a device made it to the right windowsill, the microphone picked up so much ambient noise, the recording was useless. The document suggests that this whole technique was only used a single time, and the attempt seems to have been unsuccessful. Unfortunately, Duda's luck eventually ran out. One day he was attacked by a pair of wild ravens he'd fought many times before. All three birds disappeared from sight, and Duda never returned. He was presumed killed in action. The saga of Duda mourns his loss. He was in a class by himself, writes his trainer. He had a very large bag of tricks and was loved by all. In view of these talents, I suppose I shouldn't have been too surprised when he so quickly became a star on this project. In spite of our deep sense of loss, writes the anonymous agent, we do understand such tragedies are inevitable. Ravens aren't the only birds the CIA used as spies. In secret locations across the United States, Project Axiolite was also busy turning the humblest of birds into covert eyes in the skies.
Yeah, I mean, once again, nothing is like, I really wouldn't be surprised in any regard if this is a lot of sensationalization by the CIA. I mean, once again, I don't think people necessarily fact check them at who's gonna do that. They're just gonna be like, fuck you. We're the CIA. You don't exist anymore, basically. So like, really, what stops them from being like, look how cool this is. Oh, we were flying crows to spy on the KGB, and dolphins were planting nuclear bombs. Like, it's I'm up for a great story regardless. Ravens, not crows. Okay, man. My bad. Sorry. I'm a bit skeptical as to the actual reality of this, because once again, if there's something Americans are good at, it's sensationalizing, because literally our entire government is in this position because we've sensationalized a bunch of radicalisms, to the point where we're just like literally taking a huge left turn out of democracy into something wicked. And scary. So, you know, country's real good at being like, yeah, and you know what? If we put all-inclusive bathrooms everywhere, everybody's gonna blow up and die. Yeah, that happened once. It didn't. It super happened though. You know what I mean? Like it's the same as all of them being like, your child's gonna go to school and get transgender surgery. No, they're fucking not. There's actually like a lot of complexities to actually to a minor getting any of that done. Even medical treatment, not even like surgery. Like that just doesn't happen. That doesn't happen. But like, you know, the idea of it happening is what's so, like, that's, for some reason, like, that's what Americans want to hear. They want to hear some crazy shit. And they want to, you know. I was about to say, school nurses can barely do anything without consent of the parents. That's a whole different.
It's September 1976. Aerial photographs show the Soviets building nuclear submarines in Leningrad. But the CIA needs more information. Spy planes fly tens of thousands of feet above their target, while satellites are restricted to space. From these distances, it's impossible to take detailed, high-resolution.
Yeah, wait, great point. Your bathrooms at home aren't gendered. Why have we never thought of that? And airplane bathrooms. And family bathrooms. Oh my god, dude, pooping's woke. You fucking liberal shitting. Taking a liberal poop, you sissy liberal. The liberals, they're trying to poop. They own the bathrooms. Their bathrooms are so bad. They just let anybody in there to take poops. They poop so many times. Pooping's actually very liberal. It's so left. It's so woke. It's so bad. You're going to need to stop pooping in bathrooms. You're just going to have to shit your pants. That's what I do. Believe me, I've got a little attachment right into my butt that takes my poop right out.
Photos. Enter pigeons. A pigeon could fly about 100 feet over a target any time, day or night, and regardless of the weather. Most importantly, no one would notice it, and they could clearly be trained. Pigeons are no strangers to war. During World War II, the British National Pigeon Service would drop cases of the birds over occupied Europe. People would send them back with information about daily life or even military details like troop movements. The key was their unique honing instinct. Anywhere you release a pigeon, it can find its way back home. Even today, this ability still isn't fully understood. To exploit pigeons' natural talents for aerial photography, the CIA's Office of Research and Development created special 60mm cameras and harnesses for the birds to wear. The harnesses were made of leather and attached to the birds with adjustable Velcro tabs.
That's crazy.
They were designed to allow the birds full freedom of movement while holding the camera steady during flight. The cameras were lightweight and miniaturized. Each had a small battery-powered motor that advanced the film and cocked the shutter. Each camera had its own timer.
And what?
When it went off,
shutter?
the camera would take pictures for just a few minutes, resulting in 150 to 220 photos. Together, the camera and harness weighed just 39.5 grams. To produce useful images, pigeons needed to fly directly over their target at exactly the right time, but this could be difficult to arrange. Once they were released, the pigeons would fly back home in a more or less direct line. If the target was located on that line, there was a fairly good chance the pigeons would fly over it. But in covert situations, it wasn't always possible to release pigeons in ideal locations. Some areas were restricted, others were too exposed. To get around this problem, CIA handlers tried to teach the birds ABC flight. Point A is the point of release, point B is the target, and point C is the pigeon's home loft. To begin with, temporary targets a short distance away were established at point B. When they flew to these targets, the pigeons were rewarded. Over time, they were conditioned to expect this reward. Next, the reward at point B was eliminated, but to receive a reward at point C, they had to fly over point B first. And that's how they trained a pigeon to move from A to B to C. Once the birds were conditioned, they moved on to longer training flights. Inflatable white radums 20 feet in diameter
Yeah, I'm
were
taking you
used
with a
as
grain
point
of salt
B.
too. We were just talking about
The
that.
CIA
where it's
trained and
like-
tested birds in lofts in Oregon, Virginia, Missouri.
To my knowledge, Missouri mentioned. Nobody's exactly fact-checking the CIA, to my knowledge. They could just make shit up and release documents that existed. I wouldn't even be shocked if there's some dude at the CIA that just fucking makes shit up. They're just like, dude, just come up with some stuff that people are like. Because, like, once again, America just loves some crazy shit. That's your job?
In Alaska.
Can you release this
Alaska, it was
CIA
noted,
document
shared
about how
certain
cool I
geographical
am?
features with areas of interest in the Soviet Union. The training yielded mixed results. Birds were often lost along the way. Some birds simply flew away. Some were killed by wild birds. On the longer training flights, many birds flew too low along freeways and were hit by cars. Birds sometimes disappeared while wearing the special equipment that had been developed for them. Losses were time-consuming and expensive. Each time a bird was lost, a new one had to be purchased and trained. Some of the photos taken were very high quality. Some missed the target entirely.
What the fuck are any of
Even
these?
when the birds were fully trained, they could be relied on to complete their ABC
Can't even tell
mission
what the fuck
only
those
about 1
are.
out of 4 times. A C flight still held potential, though. If the release point was chosen carefully, with the target area between it and the home loft, CIA analysts felt there was a high probability the birds would fly over the intended target and obtain the high-resolution photos required. So the CIA knows that the Soviets are building nuclear submarines in the Admiralty and Sudomex shipyards in Leningrad, now known as St. Petersburg, and it needs high-resolution photos. Time for the pigeons to shine. An agent will have to release the pigeons with the shipyards between himself and the pigeon's home loft. To do this without being detected will require clandestine release techniques. The documents mention 3 that are considered as options. One is releasing the birds from underneath a large overcoat. The second option is briefcases and shopping bags with tripped
my
bottoms.
pigeons.
The third option is this Volkswagen Beetle. A hole is cut in the floor. When the car is parked, pigeons are released through the hole.
Oh my
They
god,
waddle
this
out
is
from
just
underneath
fucking
the car
ridiculous.
and immediately take flight.
That's,
The operation is to go ahead
okay.
by August 1978.
First of all of that's ridiculous. Some dude just has a pigeon stuffed in his coat and just or in a briefcase or they just have a hole in their fucking car and they're like, get the fuck out of here. Go, bitch, get the fuck out. It's just like,
But here the trail goes cold.
That's crazy.
It's unclear whether the operation actually ever happened. The documents don't say. While the CIA's birds may have gathered invaluable aerial photo insights, other agents were being trained to sabotage enemy ships.
Project Oxygas.
This is James W. Fitzgerald. He's an engineer and
Oxygas
physicist.
sounds like a fucking street
It's
drug,
1964, and Fitzgerald has been thinking about dolphins a lot. At a cocktail party, he mentions that he believes the animals could be used in warfare. The person he's talking to happens to be an admiral in the US Navy. He's intrigued enough to introduce Fitzgerald to someone from the CIA. Around the same time, the TV show Flipper debuts. It's about a crime-fighting dolphin in a marine reserve in the Florida Keys.
Ain't no
Like
way.
most dolphins, Flipper is smart and friendly to humans, and he responds well to commands. We'll never know whether Fitzgerald and the CIA were inspired by Flipper, but it is plausible. According to the Washington Post, at this point, the CIA...
It's just like good cop, bad cop. Like, you know, I've been pretty nice to you, but, you know, my partner, not so much. You know, he's just not going to give you the same kind of slack.
CIA sends Fitzgerald to Florida, where he establishes a small laboratory.
That's ridiculous.
The same year, the CIA begins its dolphin program, Project Oxygas. The aim of Project Oxygas is to show that dolphins can be used in attacks against enemy ships. To this end, harnesses and nose cones are created to allow the dolphins to carry items.
Okay.
Someone in the CIA even produces this drawing. The dolphins are happily towing the explosive devices given to them by their handlers on top of the submarine. The program quickly passes its first test. It demonstrates that a dolphin can place a simulated explosive device against the propeller of a PT boat anchored in the open sea. In November 1964, the Deputy Assistant Director of the Office of Research and Development writes that
the CIA casually attaching a fat boy to the dolphins.
Project Oxygas has progressed more rapidly than we anticipated. It's unclear exactly what sort of simulated explosives these dolphins were carrying. The sentence that specifies this is partly redacted.
Idea. There's just no way.
The CIA probably planned on using conventional explosives, but if this was the case, why the need for secrecy? A 2021 article in Popular Mechanics suggests a haunting possibility.
There's no way this
In 1965, miniaturized nuclear weapons might have seemed achievable in the near future. The magnitude of such
Okay, I was just making a joke. Did they say that at the beginning of the video or something, and that's how I thought about it? Or did I just like... I pre-watched this. You got me, guys.
Such an idea would certainly explain the need for continued secrecy.
Oh, maybe that's why I thought of it.
The program's first success unlocks other goals. Trainers explore having dolphins place listening devices on enemy nuclear submarines. The hope is that directly attaching the devices will produce high-quality recordings that allow the CIA to better understand how the enemy's subs work.
There's no way this happens.
But wild animals
Dolphins
are
just
hard
try
to train.
Fuck anything.
One of the dolphins' strengths is how social they are. They're willing to work, especially as they bond with their trainers. But at some point, this becomes a liability. If the dolphins are performing tasks that please their trainers, then in the field, they'll need extra time to bond with agents before they can be considered reliable. There are also questions about whether dolphins can carry out operations over longer distances. At some point, the CIA seems to realize its limitations in understanding the dolphins' capabilities, and it contacts the Navy's Office of Naval Research to help. In 1967, the program's focus changed to intelligence gathering. The dolphins were to be trained to travel great distances, at least 12 miles. They would retrieve dead drops, items or information undercover agents had left behind in the water to be picked up.
That's wild.
A memo from September 14th that year suggests that Oxygas had become a joint program of the CIA and the Department of Defense. The CIA seemed unsure that Project Oxygas would produce actionable results, and the program seemed to be running out of steam. A make-or-break demonstration was scheduled for December. At that time, it would be decided whether Project Oxygas would continue. The demonstration seems to have been a failure. After that time, there are no further mentions of the program in the CIA documents. Surviving drawings and photographs gives us an idea of what Project Oxygas might have looked like. Glimpses of Project Keshel are far more rare. But between the redactions, a hazy picture emerges of likely the oddest creature the CIA ever created. This is Acoustikitty. Acoustikitty is the legendary project of Project Keshel, the CIA's dog and cat program.
What?
Of all the CIA's animal projects, Acoustikitty might have been the most controversial and the hardest to corroborate, depending on who you believe. The saga of Acoustikitty goes in fundamentally different directions. Here's the CIA story. In 1964, the agency wanted to be able to explore conversations held out in the open. Think two Soviet agents having a conversation in a public park. That required getting close and focusing in on the conversation without attracting attention. The solution is cats, who can often prowl around without people ever noticing them. A microphone is surgically placed inside a cat's ear canal. A transmitter is placed underneath a bunch of loose skin, and an antenna is woven into its fur. The whole procedure is low-risk, humane, and minimally invasive. But the cat is still a cat. It can be trained only so far. Eventually, it will do what it wants. Acoustic Kitty was never deployed in the field, and the listening devices were carefully removed from its body. But Victor Marchetti, who was special assistant to the CIA's deputy director in the 1960s, tells a very different story. Here's his version. It's sometime in the 1960s. The CIA puts a Chinese diplomat in France under surveillance, but their bugs don't just pick up his conversations. They record all the noise in the room, including the squeaking of the couch. Individual voices are inaudible. This is characteristic of the microphones of the day, which tend to record everything around them indiscriminately. The anatomy of ears, on the other hand, allows us to focus on certain sounds and exclude others. This and your brain's auditory processing abilities are why you can have a conversation at a noisy party without being overwhelmed by every sound.
Cocktail party.
When Acoustic Kitty turned its head, it would direct the microphone inside its ear. According to Marchetti, to implant the equipment, they slit the cat open, put batteries in him, wired him up, including putting a power pack in his abdomen. The tail was used as an antenna. They made a monstrosity. To focus on a single conversation, Acoustic Kitty would need to be trained. His handlers found that hunger or sexual arousal would cause him to simply lose interest and wander off, so they attached wires to his brain to monitor and neutralize those impulses.
So true.
Marchetti claims the CIA did attempt to use Acoustic Kitty in the field. The cat was then put on a test, sent across the street to eavesdrop on a conversation, being monitored by a van loaded with equipment. And as this poor little monstrosity waddled across the street, a taxicab came down and ran over it. So it was $25 million down the drain. $25 million was a lot of money then. The CIA disputes all this.
That's a lot of
on its
money
website,
now.
It claims that Marchetti's comments were meant to be a joke, and the unclassified documents are no help. The single document about Acoustic Kitty is heavily redacted. The CIA didn't just train and transform animals, it also recreated them. This looks like a dragonfly, but look closer, it's a machine, the Insectothopter. The CIA created this tiny gas-powered listening device back in the 70s. It contains a microphone, and it can flap its wings rapidly and fly just over 600 feet in a minute, guided by a laser beam. A remarkable technical achievement.
Bro, they made a drone
with some
in the
serious
70s.
limitations. Even a light breeze can throw it off course immediately. It was never used operationally.
So anytime really.
In a memo, the CIA's Deputy Director of Research and Development wrote that unfocused experimentation in the animal programs represented the worst kind of waste in terms of manpower and money. The unclassified documents often suggest that the CIA was simply exploring what animals could do without having any real objective in mind. And the results are somewhat disappointing.
I could see that.
Ravens were trained for years just to be killed by wild birds. Pigeons randomly disappeared with gear worth thousands of dollars. And depending on who you believe, an expensive cyborg cat was at best useless in the field, and at worst immediately hit by a car. The declassified documents suggest that by the mid-1970s, the animal projects had fizzled out. Despite this disappointment,
I doubt
the
that.
quest to weaponize animals continues. The United States Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, known as DARPA, has been running programs aimed at controlling insects for espionage. In 2012, a team at MIT announced that it had developed a neural probe that plugged into moths' nervous systems, allowing for their flight to be controlled. Engineers at the University of Washington have implanted moths' antenna into the Smellithopter, a drone that can actually pick up smells.
The Smellithopter?
And in 2018, DARPA announced the Persistent Aquatic Living Sensors program. The program explored the possibility of using aquatic creatures as living alarm systems.
Hold the fucking phone.
Have implanted moths' antenna into the Smellithopter, a drone that can actually pick up smells.
A drone that can pick up smells? How the fuck does that work? Can I teach my computer when it smells some bullshit? Like, what the fuck?
And in 2018, DARPA announced the Persistent Aquatic Living Sensors program. The program explored the possibility of using aquatic creatures as living alarm systems. That includes bioluminescent bacteria, which light up when disturbed by aquatic intruders. Another option was to study the sounds produced by snapping shrimp and Goliath grouper. In the case of the shrimp, disturbances in the audio could even indicate the size and shape of an intruder. It remains to be seen whether DARPA or the CIA can harness the natural world for intelligence purposes, or whether wilderness will remain just that. Maybe someday we'll discover whether any real success stories lie within all those redactions.
Wow. Well, that was a roller coaster. Once again, I don't really know how much of that to believe. I don't think anybody's keeping the CIA in check, so they could just make some shit up and redact some things, and everybody could be like, whoa, oh my God, this is like a thing that they did. Like, what's stopping them from just making some shit up right now, saying it happened during the Cold War, and that way there's like legitimately no evidence of it besides the document they decide where they decide what of it gets released. That being said, the production on this channel, amazing. I'm definitely subscribing. This is another one of his videos. He's got a bunch of them. I want to watch this one. We'll watch this one later. So we're going to watch another video by Glimpse. I haven't seen this person before, but
putting the smellithopter at the end was diabolical.
I've mentioned it. Yeah, I've mentioned it a few times. We've talked about like the dichotomy of killers and the differences between them, and how like a serial killer is different than like a spree killer, and the motivation of like going postal, like how the name going postal even occurred. And it the title seems to suggest that this person's gonna go over the sort of reasonings and how this sort of stuff happens, and how it started. So yeah, I'm gonna get a Red Bull. I need a zip. Yep. Okay.
You should probably let me take lead on this. A lot of people don't like cops.
Check out this video.
Everybody
If you
loves
have
postal workers.
if you have a video suggestion, in my Discord, we have a suggestions channel for reaction stuff. Please join the Discord. Please post it in there. Even if you've already posted it and think I haven't seen it, post it again. Who fucking cares? It's not that serious. I accidentally skipped a bunch. So yeah, please join my Discord, be a part of the community, and if you have cool videos that you want to be a part of the channel or react to it, even if you're just somebody who wants to watch some stuff, there's plenty of videos in there that you could watch on your own time, but it is cool that you guys want to watch it with me. So
You should probably let me take lead on this. A lot of people don't like cops, and everybody loves postal workers.
They do?
That's why the phrase most associated with bringing goodness into people's lives is going postal.
You're kidding, right? Going postal means that...
I know what it means. I just said what it means. That's what it means.
Okay. Well, how's about we avoid human contact altogether and check out the box?
The phrase going postal, where did it come from? What does it even really mean? These days, it usually refers to snapping and getting so uncontrollably angry that it leads to extreme violence.
True.
It's a term that gets used quite casually, but it originated from a disturbing phenomenon in the 80s and 90s. There were over 20 incidents of American postal workers storming into their workplaces and opening fire on their bosses and colleagues, resulting in over 40 deaths. The Wikipedia page for postal killings is quite extensive. So what exactly was happening at the US Postal Service that pushed so many of their workers to their breaking point? Was there a reason why postal workers were more likely to explode into a murderous rage? After all, there are shitty jobs and bosses in all industries in all parts of the world. In today's deep dive, we're going into each case to examine who these perpetrators were and what their motives were, and see whether or not there was indeed something in the water at USPS causing their employees to go postal.
God, I wonder if
Starting in the early
Reagan had
1980s,
anything to do with it.
Curtis Collins, a new hire, used a high-powered rifle to kill his supervisor
Would not
and
shock
wound
me,
a security guard. 2 days earlier, he had slashed her tires
I think
after
he
getting
just got
reprimanded.
elected like in
Kerry
80,
Smith stormed the
early
post
80s,
office
so
with a
maybe
shotgun,
not, maybe
shot
not.
2 employees outside, and killed the postmaster. He had quit 3 months earlier after 25 years on the job. Postal worker James Howard Brooks walked into the postmaster's office, shot him dead, and wounded another supervisor. He'd had a long-running feud with management. Stephen Brownlee.
It's always Reagan's fault. You know, funny enough, a lot of things end up being Reagan's fault. Yeah. If you're not a fucking idiot who just like believes whatever the fuck people tell you. A lot of the economic problems are the result of Reagan's initial choice. A lot of the drug issues are, I already talked about this on a different video. How fucking Nancy Reagan was just so racist. She got Ronald Reagan to just create a program to stop drugs, but they basically asked the Secret Service to go give black communities crack and get them addicted to manufacture a war on drugs that didn't even exist because they were so worried about like marijuana that they just gave black communities crack just to have a bigger excuse. It's once again, I mean, hilariously, not surprisingly, might be their fault. And a lot of the big overarching issues of America end up being, Reagan being an essential puppet for some big money people. And if that isn't a parallel to what we currently deal with, I don't know what is.
Veteran opened fire in the mail sorting area without warning. He killed 2 co-workers and wounded a third. Joseph Medina pulled a rifle from a mail bag, aimed it at his supervisor, and shot a co-worker who tried to help. He had a history of suspensions and held his supervisor hostage for 2 hours before surrendering. It was an ordinary workday at the Edmond Post Office in Oklahoma. Mail carriers were sorting trays and prepping for their routes, until Patrick Sherrill walked in and opened fire in what would become the deadliest workplace shooting in America and gave rise to an expression that would stick in our lexicon: going postal. Just after 7 a.m., 44-year-old part-time letter carrier Patrick Sherrill entered the Edmond Post Office wearing his work uniform, carrying a mail bag loaded with 3 semi-automatic pistols and ammunition. He was completely calm. Without saying a word, he shot and killed his supervisor, Richard Esser, and fellow carrier, Mike Rockney. He chased down fleeing employees out a side exit, shooting another man who later died in the parking lot. He chained and locked several doors, forcing the post office workers to scramble under desks, inside vaults, and in the broom closet. He moved through the building methodically, killing 3 people at one workstation, 5 at another. Most of the 73 employees inside managed to escape, jumping over the front counter or out the back door he failed to secure. 18 minutes after the shooting began, a SWAT team entered the post office. They found the shooter, Sherrill, dead, seated in a chair, a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head. In just 18 minutes, he had killed 14 co-workers, all from gunshots to the chest, and wounded 6 others. In the aftermath of the Edmond massacre, a massive federal investigation was launched into what drove Patrick Sherrill to commit the second worst mass murder in the nation's history at the time, resulting in a 7,000-page report stacked 3 feet high, and no clear answers. US postal inspectors interviewed over 400 people, from Sherrill's neighbors and co-workers to members of his bicycle club, ham radio club, and church singles group, and got many conflicting accounts about him. Some described him as shy and withdrawn, others said he had shown clear signs of violent tendencies. Investigators checked out conspiracy theories, searched his home and computer disks, but nothing definitive ever surfaced. Patrick Sherrill had worked at the Edmond post office for about a year and a half after several failed attempts at getting hired. His record wasn't clean. He'd been formally disciplined several times and often made threats of revenge. 2 days before the shooting, Sherrill had contacted the postal union, reportedly trying to seek a transfer, and the day just before the shooting, a supervisor had reprimanded him about his job performance. Co-workers said that the warning signs were there. One postal worker said he was surprised Sherrill wasn't fired after his 90-day probationary period, given how poorly he performed. According to that worker, a supervisor admitted it was tough to let Sherrill go because of his veteran status.
It's interesting. Like, it's very interesting because you hear what he's saying where it's like a bunch of his friends at clubs and stuff were like, I wouldn't have expected that. And then all of his coworkers are like, yeah, not shocking. It's crazy how masks work, man. It's wild how we change behavior in the situations we're in and how frustrated we can be and how calm and collected we can be in a different one. And then you combine that with like the just deranged behavior of like somebody willing to do something like this, and it's just the contrast. Yeah. Like the difference is crazy. I mean, and this is what's so fascinating about like serial killers, especially because they just do this like all the time, except they're so good. They're so good at publicly masking their behavior that nobody sees it coming most of the time, because the incentive for them to do it is even greater in their mind than like what we get just by being people socially. You know what I mean? Like, being socially accepted as a serial killer it means they continue, or they're allowed or able to continue to do the fucked up things they want to do, right? For us, it's just like, I mean, there's plenty of benefits to being socially like friendly, acceptable, whatever, right? It's two big human desires. The two main things is we want to be correct and we want to be accepted, right? So like people really strive to have those two things in their life where they're accepted and they're correct in their ways, right? But like, yeah, John Wayne Gacy was a big member of his community. Exactly. Ed Gein was not like a prolific member of his community, but he was friends with the police. Like, he tried to be a police officer, but at the time the standards were too strict for his height and his weight, because he's a giant. Like, he was like 6'7", couple 100 pounds, right? Like, dude is huge. And back then they didn't accept people that weren't within a certain height and weight parameter. So he just wasn't eligible. But he would or not Ed Gein, Ed Kemper. I don't know why I said Ed Gein. My bad. Ed Kemper. Ed Gein's a different one. So yeah, but because he wasn't able to be a police officer, but all of them knew him, he would go to the bar that like they would hang out at. Like they would hang out. Like, he would be friends with a bunch of them at the bar they go to, but at the same time he's sitting there killing college girls, and like they have no idea. In fact, he gets caught because he thinks he's caught, and he thinks that they know what he did, but he flees a couple of states and calls in and gives himself up, and they have no idea what the hell he's talking about because none of them suspected him at all. It's interesting. you get some level of like confession from him in that regard. Also, he's fascinating in the sense that he like was quoted to be like, I don't want to leave prison, it's like good for me. Also, I would 100% kill more people if I got let out. It's crazy. I don't know why I said Ed Gein as well. Ed Gein's also a serial killer, just so we, you know, I don't know, I got my wires got crossed. Yeah. Ed Kemper's name was the co-ed killer. If people don't know his name but know his like moniker, that's what they called him, because college people at the time were referred to as co-eds. He would basically drive around and offer rides to girls from their classes, and then yeah, he would kill them. That's what they do. One with the glasses, yeah. Anyway, it's interesting to see the change and the precision. I mean, you even hear him talk about this, where it's like he went into that post office apparently and just said nothing, just opened fire, totally calm. It's fascinating and terrifying and morbid how somebody can just like step into their workplace where they've spent a lot of time and a lot of social bonding with people and just start killing them. It's like the thought of it is chilling. But there are people that exist, that do that and did that. It's that's the mystery, and that's the fascination, is there's no, it's so hard to tell. It's so hard to figure that out, because one, somebody who typically does something like this ends up getting killed during it, or by themselves, or by the police. Like they tend to, spree killers tend to go do their thing until they're stopped, right? They don't just like do a little bit and leave. That's, it happens, but it is more like they go until they're stopped, right? That's the whole, like, they go on a spree. That's where the name sort of comes from. So you don't typically get to extract a whole lot of information out of people who do this specific type of killing, because most of them don't end up surviving the situation themselves intentionally. But even with serial killing, the amount of narcissistic and manipulative behavior within serial killers, like, they don't typically say anything worth taking like stock in. They're very good at like setting up and saving face and looking for an advantage. Like, the whole goal is perpetuity. Like, they want to stay, they want to be alive, they want to keep being alive, and they want to kill more. Like, that's the fascination of serial killing, is how they live to kill. Their motivation, their dopamine, their release, their satisfaction is from doing these things to people. And they will say, do, act, behave in whatever way allows them to persist. So it's fascinating to just like, but this is to tie back into the original point, like, serial killers especially are so good at social masking. They're so good at masking socially. Because of that motivation. They're so motivated to continue what they get to do or what they want to do that they become experts socially, but not because they want to be good at it or they love the bonding experience of being a human with others or the social benefits. The benefits are the disguise they garner from appearing acceptable. It's something else. It's a completely different neurological process. That's what makes it so fascinating. It's a totally like different wavelength of thought and ideas and morality, obviously. But once again, it yeah, like a means to an end. Yeah, like it becomes an objective. It's their entirety of existence is a completely rewired and different idea, and it's hard to pinpoint exactly how that happens or why that happens or when it happens. If it's like a innate feeling they have upon existence, or if it's a developed over time problem that they get through some kind of trauma, because there are a lot. Typically with serial killing, you see a lot of people who experienced some sort of physical or mental trauma early on that has allowed it to sort of and then the lack of being helped with that sort of stuff has sort of like fried their brain to the point. But there's also been a few anomalies where like there are serial killers who have been caught and there's nothing wrong with them besides obvious, rhetorically, obviously what they've been doing, but like no struggles at home, no physical injuries, no mental trauma, nothing wrong with them that would indicate why they could go down that path. You know what I mean? They just did it. Like they just wanted to do it. It's fascinating. It's something else. And that's kind of why this is such an interesting subject for me. Like this, the cognitive behavior of criminals is what fascinates me the most, because it's a completely different person. The logic and the justifications, the thought processes and the behaviors, the motivations for them are completely different to like mine and many of you. Like our day to day, our motivation to act a certain way and to be kind or be nice or be effortful is like a totally different experience than what they're motivated by. And it's like it's so hard to even try to figure that out, because one, they're not exactly going to share, because the more information like investigators get about behaviors like that, the better off they are at finding them. So like, but at the same time, narcissistic people like to be narcissistic and speak. So it's like they do have a lot to say, but is what they're saying actually ingrained in any truth? It's hard to tell, because they're really good at just looking good. It's crazy. It's fascinating. I mean, like, once again, that's such a deep motivation for me to like learn about this, to have learned about all this. Was like, it's so, the psychological changes in that person is so, the contrast is so fascinating. And like, I wonder if there's in any way a way to ever find out or tell. Like, as far as we know, there's nothing chemically within the brain that is a predisposition to it or anything. They've tried to find these things and there's nothing, as far as I remember. So I don't know. Sorry, that was a huge tangent. Let's go on the video. Let's go back to the video.
Employee who claimed to be a close friend told investigators
he was always saying that someday everybody would be sorry. He said that several times, but he said that for a year.
Cheryl also reportedly once told a customer,
"One of these days, I'm going to kill every one of them."
He never married, had no close friends.
I mean, yeah,
and
that's
lived with
kind
his
of
mother until her death about 8 years before the shooting. People in his humble working class neighborhood found his behavior to be unsettling, and local kids called him Crazy Pat. He was often seen prowling around other people's yards at night, with one neighbor saying he had pointed a telescope into her living room. Another neighbor said he would ride a two-seater bike with no one in the second seat. Inside his house, investigators found BB guns, paper targets, and marksmanship medals. Sherrill enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1964, though he was never deployed. He qualified as an expert marksman with the M14 rifle and later with a pistol, the highest possible rating. He was honorably discharged in 1966. In 1984, he joined the Oklahoma Air National Guard, where he served as a handgun instructor. His service record there indicated nothing out of the ordinary. He competed on the marksmanship team and was authorized to access pistols and ammunition, 2 of which he later used in the Edmonds shooting.
Well,
now anyone asks, you didn't get this here. You're not a postal worker, are you?
The string of postal killings continued into the late 80s. Postal clerk Dominic Lipoli shot and killed a female co-worker after she reported him for harassment. The meeting to address her complaint was scheduled for the day after the murder. Lipoli was a known problem employee with a prior gun conviction and had a history of threatening co-workers. He was drunk at the time and killed himself 2 hours later. Postal worker Warren Murphy shot and wounded 3 people, then held his girlfriend hostage for nearly 13 hours before surrendering. Joyce Davenport, a distribution clerk of 21 years, shot and killed her ex-boyfriend Tim McCoy, a fellow postal clerk. Davenport had no known mental health issues or criminal history. John Merlin Taylor shot his wife dead in their bed.
Go run that back.
Prime time, let's fucking go.
Joyce Davenport, a distribution clerk of 21 years, shot and killed her ex-boyfriend Tim McCoy, a fellow postal clerk. Davenport had no known mental health issues or criminal history. John
That's the fascination right there, man. How does somebody with no prior problems just bang, just so decisively do that? It's an enigma. It's like such a huge question.
Merlin Taylor shot his wife dead in their bed, then drove to his postal station job half a mile away, where he killed 2 co-workers, wounded a 3rd, before shooting himself in the head. Taylor was a 27-year USPS veteran, just 3 years away from retirement, and was described as a model employee. Quiet, friendly, rarely complained, and was well liked by co-workers and customers. People on his route knew him by name. He seemed to have a happy marriage, but underneath his mellow exterior, something had shifted. According to his local union representative, Taylor had become increasingly paranoid. He believed postal inspectors and management were testing him by planting money for postage on his route and watching his every move. He was convinced his co-workers and wife were in on it, conspiring to get him fired. Investigators later found a suicide note in his home which read,
"I'm hurting a lot for my age anyway, and only have pain to look forward to. I'm really ready to go, and these assholes have given me a reason. I'm not crazy, just old-fashioned."
In the early hours of October 10, 1991, 35-year-old former postal worker Joseph Harris broke into the home of his ex-supervisor, Carol Ott, in Wayne, New Jersey. He shot Carol's fiancée as he slept in a chair, then killed Carol in her bedroom with a samurai sword. He then went to his former workplace, the Ridgewood Post Office about 10 miles away, waited for 2 mail handlers to arrive for their shift, forced them into a room, and shot them both dead. Joseph Harris had worked at USPS for about 8 years as a clerk. During that time, he had racked up 5 warning letters and 2 suspensions for failing to follow instructions, refusing orders, and using vulgar language. He repeatedly clashed with his supervisor, Carol Ott, who eventually pushed for his removal. He was officially fired in May 1990 after refusing a fitness for duty exam. Carol had accused him of harassment, though she declined to file formal criminal charges. Co-workers described Harris as quiet, tense, difficult, and didn't take orders well and didn't respond to authority. His anger over his firing brewed for 18 months, and he began stalking Carol sometime in 1991, following her from work to her home and hanging around in her neighborhood. Harris was born in prison and had lifelong psychiatric issues. He served in the Navy from 1974 to 1977, where he was disciplined multiple times for disobedience and disrespect. His record described him as distrustful, defiant, and hostile towards authority. After the killings, police found a 2-page handwritten letter in Harris's home in which he blamed the Postal Service, saying he'd been treated unfairly. His letter also referred to the 1986 Edmond shooting, making it clear that this was a premeditated act of revenge. Police were also able to connect Harris to the 1988 murder of an investment broker named Roy Edwards. In 1984, Harris had invested $10,000 with the broker, but when the money was lost, he broke into the Edwards home dressed in a ninja outfit, assaulted Edwards' wife and daughters, then shot Edwards dead. Since hundreds of investors lost money with Edwards, police had not considered Harris to be a suspect at the time. Harris eventually received 2 death sentences.
Oh my God, look! It's disgruntled postal workers!
Oh my God, Naked Gun.
At 8:48 a.m., 31-year-old Thomas McIlvaine, a fired letter carrier, walked through the back dock of the Royal Oak Post Office with a sawed-off .22 caliber rifle hidden under his jacket. Over the next 6 minutes, he killed 4 postal employees, wounded 5 others, and then turned the gun on himself. Some employees were able to escape by hiding and jumping out windows. McIlvaine notably avoided shooting customers. He fired around 100 shots in total. McIlvaine had been fired in July the year before after repeated conflicts with management. His record included verbal abuse, a 7-day suspension for swearing, and a fitness for duty exam that diagnosed him with borderline personality disorder, a history of cocaine abuse, and traumatic early life experiences. After his firing, McIlvaine repeatedly called in death threats to the post office, and as a result, his concealed weapons permit was revoked.
Sneeg on his phone. I'm actually doing research. Sorry for the lack of commentary. If you're not aware, a couple of days ago, some firefighters got shot at in Idaho. Well, at the time of reporting, people got shot in Idaho during a wildfire, right? And it was reported that it was potentially firefighters who got shot. Officially, 2 died and 1 got injured. It turns out, I'm not going to say the person's name because they don't deserve the recognition. That's part of the problem, is the glorification of the people that do this shit. Yeah, it wasn't a wildfire. This person deliberately lit it in order to draw out firefighters in order to shoot them, which was something I had mentioned as a possible motivation for him to do. In this article, his grandfather is quoted saying he wanted to be a fireman. He was doing tree work and he wanted to be a fireman in the forest. As far as I know, he was actively pursuing it. So I had mentioned at a previous crime time, I think, or just randomly in a during a stream previously, maybe the day it was happening, where it's like there's motivation to that. There's motivation to the specific victims. Why does he have issues with the firefighters? The same reason people do this. It's entirely possible that he was trying to be a firefighter and they basically told him to fuck off. And that's, unfortunately, can be enough for somebody to go after that. Like, you'll see this in like serial killers too, where like there are a lot where the hatred typically, like a male serial killer's hatred for women come from their mother, right? Like it's a thing that happens, not every time, but it can come from having like an abusive mother in the home, mentally, physically, whatever, right? And when you go down the list of their victims, there's a lot of parallels between how their victims look and how their mom looks. Back to Ed Kemper. Ed Kemper killed a bunch of college women until he eventually killed his mom because he actually hated his mom the most. It's an interesting, yeah, like they become like a pseudo real, like a person to take it out on without actually taking it out on the person they want to take it out on. Yeah. And that's not just like parent to child. It comes to this sort of stuff too. With the example, this is why I looked this up, because I was curious if this guy in a way went postal, and based off of that sort of thing, there's no sort of manifesto or suicide note that's been found to my knowledge yet, but based off of that, the grandparents quote, it might be, it might be a similar situation where it's like, you know, if that's what he really wanted, some people really don't like rejection. It's enough for some people. It's enough of a motivator. And that's where my questions were when it happened, because I was like, if it was just firefighters that were injured and there were still hikers trying to leave the scene, etc., if he's just shooting at people, why aren't other people shot? And this is exactly why, because clearly his frustrations were with the firefighters for something they did to him. I don't think that's been made clear. I'm sure there's like rumors. I didn't see anything concrete about like the actual trigger for him to have done that, but you see the motivation within the victims. That's what's interesting, is the victims themselves shed light on the behavior or the motivation. So yeah, I was just looking that up to see if there's any confirmation behind that sort of thing. And there is, apparently. I not 100%, but it's interesting. So I remember talking about it at some point, and I wanted to bring it back up because it is like low key, it connects with this video in that regard, where it's like these, you know, job rejection, promotion rejection, horrendous treatment by your superior, etc. This stuff is a universal experience, but also some people don't want to handle it. Understandably, nobody should deal with it, but some people don't want to tolerate it so much that they do things like this. Fascinating. I have to piss, so we're going to take a little pee-pee break before we continue on, if that's all right. Okay. Everybody fart while I'm gone, all right? What the fuck is that? Why is the pink Pikmin flopping around? The hell's that about? That's an emote? When did this happen? Freak pink? When did we get that as an emote? Whatever, dude.
A symphony of sausage.
Hello, everyone! Sneeg だよ! Happy birthday to you. Hello, everyone! Happy birthday to you.
What is happening?
Sneeg だよ!
Okay. All right, I'm back. Back to the video. Let's get this one donezo.
He told the union rep,
If I don't get my job back, I'll make Edmund look like Disneyland.
McIlvain's arbitration case for reinstatement remained pending for 13 months. On November 13th, 1991, one day before the shooting, he learned he had officially lost his arbitration.
It means he'll make the previous tragedy look like a joke. Or like a pleasant experience as opposed to what he will do.
McIlvain served in the Marines, but his record was marked by repeated insubordination, disciplinary issues, and trouble taking orders. He was demoted multiple times and struggled with authority throughout his enlistment. He was also a professional kickboxer, but his friends and teammates said he would never pick a fight outside the ring. Co-workers were aware that McIlvain was a ticking time bomb. He had started off as a friendly, easygoing guy, but became increasingly volatile over the years as he was often singled out and harassed by management. After he was fired and started calling the office with threats, some workers said they started planning escape routes in case he ever came back. Prior to the shooting, the Royal Oak Post Office was already being investigated because of an unusually large number of complaints by employees and customers. Workers described it as a hostile, micromanaged environment. They were followed during routes, reprimanded for chatting or taking breaks, forced to do unpaid overtime, and penalized for minor infractions like not wearing a tie. Michigan U.S. Senator Carl Levin said the workplace was, quote, rife with harassment.
Well, that's
Government
insane.
Accountability Office investigation.
How are none of these threats taken seriously? It's hard to say, man. What's unfortunate is the best answer I can give you, and the one that typically happens, is human nature. Nobody wants to think somebody would actually do these sorts of things. It's, yeah, a lot of little reasons is a great way to put it. It's not one thing, it's all of these things. Specifically going postal ends up being, it tends to be an accumulation of problems for these people, like a death by 1,000 cuts. It's not one incident that's causing this entire thing. There's an incident that catalyzes what's already thousands of stab wounds in their mind, and finally all of them light up and they just blow up, right? And people don't want to hear this, because unfortunately a lot of life is like this, where the nuances and the problems that we all deal with are so micro and specific that nobody really wants to hear about it, because that requires a lot of thought and complexity. But they just want to hear that, like, they don't want to hear that somebody who is fairly normal decided to shoot and injure / kill 20 people. They want to hear that they were like some messed up dude in the head who was going to do it all along, right? And this is in no way to justify, because once again, a part of criminology is to rationalize the behavior, not because we want to excuse it, but because we want to understand it, right? Because the understanding of criminological behavior allows for a better process in which investigators and anybody else can help prevent or solve crime, right? So the rationalizations of these behaviors are essential for people in criminology, so we can sort of pinpoint these sort of things. We can't understand a person unless we're with them. You know what I mean? You can't see a person from afar, and you certainly can't hear what they have to say if you're not with them, right? So, and as morbid as it is, these behaviors are human. Because unfortunately, enough people are doing these things. This is a human thing that people do. Enough people do this and have done this to where this is an obscure and very small microcosm of human behavior. But it's not just one time. We're literally listening to a video about a bunch of the same type of thing happening in a decade, in a span of 10 years. And now we have them almost every day in some fashion, and it's terrifying. But it's hard to not acknowledge that this is unfortunately an aspect of human nature, and to dehumanize all of these people is a moot point. I think unfortunately the reality is that people do these things and have done these things. Violence is a very relevant thing for people. I mean, how many places, countries, people have just slaughtered animals or others for practically nothing? I mean, we witness one in our current day with what's happening to the Palestinians and many others. Unfortunately, there's too many to even count, because it's not just there. There's many other people being genocided. And it's unfortunately an not inherent, but a part of human nature where some people just feel the inclination. But if we don't, in criminology, if you don't try to humanize the criminal, you will have no chance of understanding the behavior, because you will not be able to see how they see it. Therefore, you will not be able to understand it in the same aspect. And being unable to understand the behavior destroys the investigative process. So yeah, you ask yourself, how could somebody do this sort of thing? But unfortunately, it's happened enough times in our time, and even before our time, that it's a human behavior. These things happen and people do these things. And to deny that these people are human at their core but fucked up in their path is ignorant. People don't want to hear it, though. They don't want to hear that a serial killer was a mostly normal person who happened to kill 10 people throughout the span of a couple of years, right? But by all means, a majority of their life was spent being normal, right? Like, that's a hard thing to grasp. That's a very difficult thing to process. How does somebody, for 95% of their time, be the nicest person in the community, but that 5%, they're literally torturing and killing people? It's a terrifying thought, because once again, I mean, we've talked about it before, the social aptitude of especially a serial killer is terrifying. Because they're so good at being appealing for the purpose of what they want deep down. It's a completely different motivation, but at the same time, there's no denying that it's inherently human, because technically they want to be accepted. Now, their reason for being accepted is completely different than most people's reasons for wanting to be accepted, but that need to be accepted is still there. It's a tough question, man, because there's not really a good answer, and the answers that people try to give or try to say is extremely just dangerous language, because dehumanizing people that don't have to but do these things is a great way to just continuously allowing people to do these things. You'll just never understand it. And if you want to put your head in the sand, that is a totally valid thing. There's nothing wrong with not wanting to delve into this sort of stuff. But if the true motivation and interest is to study the behavior and learn and try to help the behavior or prevent the behavior, there needs to be a level of acceptance of humanity within people who do even terrible things like this. Because once again, even motivations, even the things that motivate a serial killer or a spree killer, still boil down inherently to the human motivation and nature. And you have to accept that. You can't dehumanize this sort of person, because you just you break apart the inherent, like, you could do that for anybody in that regard. Because once again, how does a person live 95% of their life doing everything like anybody else would, but 5% they're killing 20 plus people throughout a 10-year, 20-year time span? That's an extremely hard thing to think about. But people want to act like these guys are just out every single night prowling with a knife in a corner in an alley waiting for something to happen. That's not how it works. That's never been how it works for them. And to pretend like that is how it works is fear-mongering and not healthy for you, by the way. Dangerous. It's dangerous to pretend like it's just, I don't know. There's so much to it. I hope that makes some form of sense. It's hard to really tell you what the answer is as to like how could somebody even do this, because you know, this is an inherently, the end result is not a inherently universal experience, but the experience building up to it is universal. Everybody has dealt with one of those days, one of those years, one of those multiple years where just shit continues to push them down, right? And you know, it's where stuff like the word crash out comes from. Like, people only take so much, and unfortunately some people's like level of what they need to do to let out the frustration is way more violent and harmful to everybody else than most. It's hard to grasp, because once again, when you break these behaviors apart, they're inherently human. The majority of this experience is a human thing that we all deal with. The end result is not, obviously. And there's no way justification on my end. There's no way to justify these sorts of moments, right? Like, this is a terrible thing to do to people, right? But you denying that being overworked by your boss, getting denied a promotion, getting denied a transfer, getting harassed at work, getting bullied at work, getting a shit job at work, not being able to get out of that job, getting reprimanded at work for doing nothing really that big of a deal, etc. A lot of these things are extremely universal. And if we don't meet people where
Master's degree student, one of the best things I've learned in my classes is that two contradictory things can be true at the same time. Of course this is human action, but so is kindness and love.
That's
you
nuance.
must accept both.
That is nuance, man. It's tough. It's tough. And this is what people don't want to hear, because a lot of people, majority of the population, just wants the easy answer, which is like, these guys, they're evil. They don't have any thought. They don't have any humanity. And that's just not true. It's just not true, unfortunately. As much as I hate to be the person to break that news, to pretend like most of these people that do these things aren't mostly human is terribly ignorant and dangerous. Because what you do is you get people who are so terrified of nothing, terrified of hypotheticals that don't exist. You get stuff like what happened in Colorado a long time ago, where they were so convinced about super serial killers that they put such restrictive laws on minors who committed murder, that there were kids who committed murder who were in prison for life, no matter what, for a long time. Even though the majority of the idea is to allow these people to be reintroduced at 18 if they do a good job within juvenile hall, right? Obviously, there's whole sorts of complexities to a child murderer, but you get, once again, you get stuff like I just said, where a whole governmental body is convinced that like certain new cultures and video games, etc., are going to create like the super serial killer. So we should make a bunch of laws really punitive in advance for this upcoming thing we have no evidence towards. And then kids who make a terrible choice at an age that they don't even grasp most of reality or life get their fate sealed at 10% of their existence. You know what I mean? because the nuance is completely overlooked because nobody wants to accept that sometimes people who do evil things can also be inherently a person. And we hate that. We hate that. We hate hearing that. We don't want to hear that. We want evil people to be evil and purely. But there's not a supervillain in reality. There's no Lex Luthor, man. There's no Green Goblin. There aren't people who are just inherently fucked up, and everything they do is fucked up and to fuck over people. You may think that, and you may be told that, and that's an understandable feeling, but at the same time, a majority of the people's lives who do these sorts of things are being a person, and to not accept that is a failure to understand why they would even do these sorts of things. Which is also inherently more terrifying because you're like, this is just a thing anybody could do. Technically speaking, this is just something people are capable of doing. If the switch just flipped and everybody chose such, it's scary. It's a scary reality, but it's the reality we have. And to not at least acknowledge it comes with a really hard inability to grasp the correct knowledge, and it's dehumanizing. Excuse me. All right. My bad. I went on another tangent.
Had already flagged toxic conditions under the postmaster Daniel Priscilla, who had previously been transferred from Indianapolis, where he ran the facility using excessive discipline and racial discrimination. The branch manager Christopher Carlisle, who was killed in the shooting, was also transferred from Indianapolis. The investigation found that Carlisle was widely hated. Employees said that workplace morale plummeted under their leadership. Letter carrier and union rep Charlie Wither said,
I'm sure a lot of people at one time or another fantasized about killing Carlisle. Not anyone in this group, from carriers to clerk, mail handlers to personnel staff, would shed a tear for that monster.
Let me ask you something. What do you do for a living?
There it is.
I'm a United States postal worker.
Aren't those the guys that always go crazy and come back with a gun and shoot everybody?
Sometimes.
Postal vehicle maintenance worker Lawrence Jason shot and killed another mechanic, wounded 2 more co-workers, then killed himself. He worked on and off for the Postal Service for 27 years and had a history of warnings, suspensions, and threats dating back to 1986. Jason served in the Army from 1967 to 1969.
Yeah, great example. The Unabomber. In the Unabomber's writing, he was basically like, I'm literally not fucking crazy. I'm just pissed. And I need people to notice. It's interesting. It's interesting because you, once again, you see that glimpse of humanity within that writing where he wants people to understand him and he wants to be accepted for his thoughts. It's interesting, man. It's wild. That's a great example. Thanks for bringing that up.
Was demoted twice for disobeying orders and was barred from reenlistment. He had no criminal record. On the same day in California, Mark Richard Hilbun, a fired postal worker, killed his mother and her dog in her home, then went to his former workplace and shot 2 employees, killing 1. He intended to kidnap a female employee he had been stalking, but she was unharmed in the shooting. He then began a 2-day violent rampage, robbing people at ATMs and injuring several other members of the public. Hilbun had a long history of alcohol and drug abuse and was diagnosed with schizoid personality disorder with depressive features. He served in the Air Force from 1976 to 1982. Former letter carrier Ronald Wendell Downs Sr. ambushed and shot his ex-girlfriend, who was also a letter carrier, while she was delivering on her route. He had been fired from the Postal Service for repeatedly threatening to kill her and had a past arrest for threatening her with a gun. Downs had served in the Navy. Postal worker Bruce Clark shot and killed his supervisor after an argument. Clark had worked at the mail processing center for 25 years, was quiet, had no disciplinary problems, no history of conflict with other employees, and was known for caring for stray cats. He served in the Marines from 1966 to 1970 and had no history of substance abuse, mental health problems, or violence. Fired mail handler Charles Edward Jennings shot and killed labor relations specialist James Brown in the parking lot of his former workplace. Jennings' track record at USPS was conflicting. He had been recognized several times for excellent performance, yet had multiple suspensions and letters of warning, and was ultimately fired for falsifying records and fraud. Before the shooting, Jennings explicitly
Military service seems to pop up a lot. Can't imagine why.
threatened to kill several supervisors if he was
Aren't
terminated.
all these only men?
But
No,
those
there's a woman
warnings were never
example
passed
earlier.
on to authorities. After the firing, he spiraled into heavy drug use, spending several days in a motel smoking crack, where he reportedly told a woman he planned to kill his former bosses. Jesus Antonio Tamayo.
Okay, so the actual reason that the military gets brought up a lot is because the military actually preys on vulnerable, mentally ill, or desperate men who need belonging, funding, acceptance, or validation. So a lot of these men who have a lot of things going on in their head and don't have a good place to actually go and digest that information get put into a toxic situation where they're basically validated for being like really upset and wanting to take it out on something. So then they're told that they can go and like shoot at people and actually take it out on something. But then when they're done going and doing that thing, they come back here where they don't get to do that. And then they're upset because they don't get to do that because their usual solution has been validated for like a ton of time in their very important developmental years mentally in their 18 to 20s. And then they basically can't handle normal societal structure because for like 4 years, whatever, they were basically told that all of their problems are basically valid and they can solve it by just being violent.
Was working the service window at the post office when he spotted his ex-wife and her friend standing in line. Without a word, he reached into his drawer, grabbed a fanny pack, and calmly walked out the employee exit. Moments later, he returned through the public lobby, pulled a gun from his pack, and shot both women, wounding his ex-wife and killing her friend. Tamayo then stepped outside and shot himself dead. He and his ex-wife had been divorced for 4 years before the shooting. Anthony James DeCulett shot and killed a fellow postal clerk, wounded 2 more, then killed himself. 16 months earlier, DeCulett had told his therapist that he was under a lot of stress and wanted to kill his boss, while co-workers believed the shooting was a result of frustration over
Chat, hate to do this. I gotta go help my wife really quick. We keep pausing in this video, so I'm so sorry, but she needs my help with Darcy for a second. I'll be a few minutes. So if a mod wants to entertain, either by scaring chat or putting up a video or whatever, that would be really appreciated. It'll take me a couple minutes. I'll be back ever so shortly. Chicken.
Watching from but came to resub to the master of farts and freaks. Meow.
Hello. Sorry for the brief hiatus. Check in. Okay. Hannah was making dinner and Darcy was feeling very, very attached to Hannah and wasn't wanting to be away from her. So,
Hello, everyone.
I was playing Distraction. Hope that's okay. Sorry for the delay. Kind of works out because now I have food, so we can watch this and I can eat, and it's not like interrupting any like gaming and stuff that I might be doing later. So hell yeah.
The unrequited love he had for a co-worker. He had been evaluated by the USPS but was deemed fit for duty and did not pose an acute danger. He served in the Marines for 5 years and received a Good Conduct Medal. Letter carrier Maceo Yarbao returned from his route, entered the lunchroom of North Haven Station, and shot postal clerk Lavinia Shaw, believing that she had directed her boyfriend and postal inspectors to follow him. Yarbao suffered from paranoid schizophrenia. He was found mentally unfit to stand trial and was committed to the maximum security unit at a state mental hospital.
Even though I apologized to Lucy, something was still plaguing me. Like Josh thinking I was mean was making me postal.
Move into the right lane?
January 2006's infamous Goleta shooting is considered to be the final chapter in the deadly era of going postal killings. Although there have been a few more post office workplace shootings since then, that barely made headlines due to the fact that the public had become desensitized to incidents where only 1 or 2 people were killed. 44-year-old Jennifer San Marco started her day at the Santa Barbara condo complex where she lived 3 years earlier and shot her former neighbor, Beverly Graham, in the head, someone she used to argue with constantly. Less than an hour later, San Marco arrived at the Goleta mail processing plant, where she had previously worked for 6 years. She tailgated another car through the security gate, stole an employee's ID badge to enter the building, pulled out a handgun, then methodically shot 6 employees dead. Her last victim was listening to music with headphones and never heard the gunshots. San Marco then shot herself in the head. To this day, it remains the deadliest mass shooting ever committed by a woman in US history. San Marco had a documented history of severe mental illness. In 2003, the USPS had forced her into psychiatric retirement and she had to be wheeled out of the mail processing plant in handcuffs. She had a long-standing feud with her neighbor Beverly, and other neighbors described her as unstable as she could often be seen arguing with herself, kneeling and praying in the street, singing at the top of her lungs, and stripping naked in public. She later moved to a home in the New Mexico desert. She attempted to distribute her homemade newsletter called The Racist Press, which was filled with errors and bizarre explanations about serial killer David Berkowitz, who was working as a letter sorter for the USPS at the time of his arrest, the KKK, and other racist murders. Co-workers said her behavior grew more bizarre over the years. She'd talk or argue with herself and sometimes made racist comments, though she never actually threatened anyone. 6 of her 8 victims were minorities, so racial discrimination was not ruled out as a motive. Police later found incoherent writings in her home alluding to a conspiracy against her, orchestrated by her former workplace and a local medical facility where she was once held. Despite all this, San Marco was able to legally purchase her gun and ammo used in the shooting from a local pawn shop. So what exactly was going on at the USPS that led to over 20 mass shootings perpetrated by employees in just 2 decades? Let's rewind a bit first. The US Postal Service didn't always operate like a business. It was an official department of the federal government until 1971, when it was restructured into a semi-independent agency meant to run like a business but still serve the public. The plan was for it to eventually fund itself, but it didn't really work out that way. By the mid-1970s, the USPS was hemorrhaging money. Stamps doubled in price, while the post offices were barred from expanding into non-mail services to bring in extra revenue. Tens of thousands of workers were cut, and Congress had to bail it out with a $1 billion lifeline. Meanwhile, competition from UPS and other private carriers was also eating into the business. As budgets tightened, management put more and more pressure on postal workers on the ground to work harder and faster, increase surveillance, and enforce stricter discipline. Employee complaints and stress levels skyrocketed. Then in the 1980s, a wave of workplace violence in post offices erupted. The worst of them, the 1986 Edmond shooting, was so shocking that it cemented postal killings as a pattern, sparked the expression going postal, and postal workers were stereotyped as being more likely to be violent and mentally unstable. As more deadly incidents broke out in post offices around the country, the stories in the media began to sound similar. Disgruntled postal workers snaps because they were recently disciplined or fired and angry at management, and many of them seemed to have existing mental health issues or were veterans with a short fuse. But as almost always the case, news headlines never tell the whole story. In 2000, the 249-page USPS Commission on a Safe and Secure Workplace report was published. The National Center on Addiction and Substance Abuse at Columbia University surveyed and interviewed thousands of postal workers as well as employees from other industries, going case by case, broke down the data, and uncovered that going postal was a myth. First thing to know is that the US Postal Service is massive. It's the second largest civilian employer in America after Walmart, and in 1999, it had over 900,000 employees. It's also an unusually stable workforce. Postal employees are twice as likely as the average US worker to have stayed in their job for over a decade. The report found that postal workers were no more likely to physically assault, sexually harass, or verbally abuse their co-workers than workers in any other sector.
So it's
what the data
sample
actually
size?
showed was that workplace violence in general was far too common across America, not uniquely at the USPS. In fact, postal workers were much less likely to be victims of homicide on the job. Between 1992 and 1998, the rate of workplace homicide among USPS employees was 0.26 per 100,000, about 1/3 of the national average of 0.77.
Wow.
For perspective, retail workers were 8 times more likely to be killed at work, and taxi drivers were 150 times more likely. As for whether postal workers were more likely to be killed by co-workers, the numbers were impossible to pin down because nearly half of all workplace homicides in the US couldn't be traced to a known perpetrator type. Therefore, there was no solid basis for comparing USPS to the rest of the workforce on that point. The report did reveal some serious structural problems at the Postal Service and a lot of unhappy employees. Even though postal workers were actually found to be less angry, aggressive, and stressed than average, they still tended to have more negative attitudes about their jobs, their co-workers, and their managers. 31% of postal
Do you remember all that stuff earlier? I was talking about sensationalizations within American media and people in general, and how a lot of us just want to hear some crazy shit. Here we go. Exactly it. The media sees a story that people are latched to, and they blow it up. And they, they really go after it. I mean, not a similar example, but an example is when all this stuff a couple of days ago, or a couple of weeks ago, months ago even, were happening with the planes. A bunch of planes were malfunctioning, etc. That happens all the time. It happens all the time. But because people were so attached to the story and interested in the story, media publishing companies, etc., were like, oh, let's talk about these. So even the littlest of them, people would write and report and latch onto. So I think that's part of where he's going here, where it was like, this is more uncommon than everything else statistically, but because it was such a sensationalized thing that when it happened, it got blown up into proportion. Goes back into all what I was saying about sensationalization earlier. Goes into stuff like, you know, when I was in St. Louis, and Mike Brown got killed, I lived in a town near Ferguson and had a friend in Ferguson, had people, I would drive through Ferguson, I had people in Ferguson, I would frequently go through the area, even during that time, and there was always like, during that time, the national media really like set it up where like they thought, they reported that like basically the entirety of that city was just like erupted and on fire and a mess and a battleground. And it was like, technically there was only damage done to a very small portion of the downtown of that area. But because people were so interested and so attached to these stories, sensationalization comes out. Fear-mongering occurs because that gets people riled up and reading and watching and scared and attached and attentive.
The workers had negative opinions of their co-workers versus 14% nationally, and only 58% felt positively about their managers versus 79%. The USPS also had a massive 126,000 active grievances, with 6,300 of those ending up in arbitration in 1999. For comparison, the entire US auto industry of over 400,000 unionized workers saw just 11 arbitrations in 1 year. Postal workers consistently rated their managers more negatively than the average American worker. They were less likely to trust leadership to be fair or honest, less likely to feel recognized for good work, and less confident that management was making the workplace safe. In fact, 27% said managers would, quote,
try to provoke employees to violence,
compared to just 6% of the national workforce. 8% agreed that threats or violence were effective ways to get things done at work, which was 4 times higher than the national rate. Postal workers reported having little freedom in their day-to-day work and scored significantly lower on autonomy measures than workers in other industries. Postal workers were also more than twice as likely as the wider workforce to fear their supervisors. The stats from the report painted a clear picture of a highly toxic workplace culture.
This
Add
is
to
fascinating.
that underfunding, strict management,
It's like
and
both.
unreasonable
It's actually
productivity
like both
demands.
answers.
You'll get a workplace where people are deeply unhappy. I'm not trying to victimize the killers, but it turns out when you strip workers of their autonomy and ignore their grievances, some of them might snap. The next part of the going postal narrative.
1,000 cuts. Like I said previous. It isn't. And this happens for a lot of people. Somebody being extremely upset isn't that one day. It's all of those days where something like that happened, all adding up and it just exploding.
Was that the USPS failed to properly screen its hires and that military veterans were behind a disproportionate number of postal killings. Because the USPS was technically a government agency, it had a mission to hire people who might struggle to find work elsewhere, including those with incomplete employment histories or even mental health concerns. It also had a veterans preference policy where former service members, especially those who served in combat, got a boost in the hiring process.
What does that sound like? Hold on. 1 second, guys. I'll be right back again, unfortunately.
Symphony of Sausage.
Super duper. Uno. Wow. Super duper. Reverse. That'll teach you. Don't stop now. Super duper. Wow. Don't stop now.
I'm jaking it. I'm jaking it. Oh, so good.
Time to play! No? Well, time to die! Cause I'm not nice! No, I'm not nice! I'll shoot you in the face till I make you die!
This is kind of epic.
Okay. So sorry. Let's watch the rest of this video really quick.
That's why postal workers were more than twice as likely to be veterans compared to the general workforce. That being said, the report proved that veterans weren't any more likely to become violent. About 71% of the known perpetrators were veterans, but that's roughly in line with the number of male postal workers who were veterans too. Statistically, the difference wasn't significant. The real issue was in how hiring and red flags were handled. In several cases, people who went on to commit violence had serious warning signs in their background, like substance abuse issues, undisclosed criminal records, or disciplinary problems in the military. Sometimes, managers let those things slide because they thought they had to hire veterans, even when there were good reasons not to. When warning signs popped up on the job, like threats, erratic behavior, concerning statements, responses were all over the place. In some cases, action was taken, but in too many others, the red flags were ignored, misjudged, or not reported at all. One employee even warned their manager that a co-worker was, quote,
a time bomb waiting to go off.
But nothing was done. So once again, it came down to structural problems, inadequate background checks, misunderstanding of hiring policies, and a lot of missed opportunities to act. The Goleta shooting happened 6 years after this report was published and recommendations were handed down to the USPS. And there have been more postal killings since in recent years, but that feels less like a postal problem and more relevant to America's mass shootings problem, which is a whole other story. I don't live in the US and can't speak to how postal workers are perceived over there nowadays. So please share in the comments, is going postal still a thing? What do people think of the USPS in general? As always, thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next video.
Great video. Sorry for the breaks in between. I appreciate your patience. Unfortunately,
Super duper. Wow.
Unfortunately, I'm gonna have to end stream. My wife isn't feeling well all of a sudden, so I hate to end stream so abruptly and so quickly, especially because I'm about to go on a break. But family comes first, so I hope that's okay with everybody. I appreciate your time. I'll try to get these 2 videos and the one from yesterday up and scheduled for while I'm gone. And once again, if you're in LA and want to watch the live show that I'm going to be doing with Jimmy here, Rubber Ross, and Slimesicle, I'd love to see you there. It's on July 5th, 8 p.m. PST at the Terra Graham Ballroom. The link is jimmyhearetickets.com. So if there's some available and you want to come watch, I would love to see you there. I'm going to go take care of my family. I appreciate it. Anybody over at YouTube, I appreciate your guys' participation in the stream today, even if it's like you are just sort of watching, but a lot of you have come over from YouTube to Twitch and you have my thanks. That's sort of the objective and it's really appreciated. So I'm going to end my YouTube stream and then I'm going to yell at my webcam to end my Twitch stream. So okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to get a grasp of this stuff. All right, guys. I'll see you in a couple days. Appreciate it a ton, as always. Lots of new subs today. Cryptid, thank you for that Prime sub just now. Welcome. Somebody gifted 10 subs earlier. Electric Ginger, thank you so much for that. That's super generous. Sorry I missed that in the middle of all this. So a bit of just some stuff going on in my house. I'm just gonna go and take care of my wife and kid. And then I'll see you guys Tuesday. I think Tuesday. Sometime next week. Sometime early next week, okay? Or I'll see you at the live show. So there's that too. All right.
Come on, you can do this. I believe in you.
Okay.
Uno!